You're about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. So transgender youth. Apparently, this is back in the news because NYU Langone Health has denied gender-affirming care for two 12-year-olds after the executive order came from the Trump administration that directed institutions that receive federal funding to halt gender-affirming care, surgery, hormones in kids. They said families, this is reported by NYU News, families of at least two children, both 12 years old, first reported this after their appointments to receive puberty blockers were canceled. Now, again, I'm under the impression these were not puberty blockers for precocious puberty or for a hormonal issue. This was to strictly prevent them from developing into their biological sex. One of the children was due for the procedure last Thursday, but the doctor told the child's parent that the hospital is no longer offering gender-affirming care to minors. The other child was scheduled for the same procedure Friday, but was informed of its cancellation the day after President Donald Trump's order. Doctors reportedly told the children's families that the procedures were canceled because of the new administration and that they were awaiting more guidance. Trump's order stipulated that the United States is no longer funding institutions that offer gender-affirming treatment to children, including hormone replacement therapy, puberty-blocking medication, or surgery. The White House called these procedures destructive and life-altering and said the order will ensure that federal research and education grants end what it calls the, quote, chemical and surgical mutilation of children. Now, in 2023, during the Biden administration, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services gave NYU $628 million in grants. Now, this wasn't for gender affirming, but that's a lot of money, comprising more than 87% of the university's federal funding. Well, then, if the Department of Health and Human Services gave 87% of the federal funding, what was the other 13% of federal funding? That same year, unless maybe they're talking about Medicaid and Medicare, that same year, the medical center was awarded $220 million in grants and contributions, only 2.7 of which was given by the federal government. So NYU Langone does not want to, obviously, tick off the current president. They also, and I'm wondering about the doctors, because most of the doctors I know disagree with giving a child puberty blockers to try to manipulate their natural biological development so that they could look closer to the other sex, which were already in society eliminating the stereotypes of, well, you have to have a certain size boobie, or you have to have an affinity towards skirts and pink. We're not doing that. That's not what a girl or boy is anymore. A girl and boy, a boy is somebody that has male sexual parts that will eventually produce sperm, and a female has female sexual parts that will eventually allow her, if she's fertile, to reproduce and give birth. So to change somebody's gender, it's almost like an oxymoron. Yeah, I understand it's gender. Gender is what you identify as, but you're not going to change somebody's biology. You could remove all the parts, etc. But if they're XX, they're XX. If their chromosomes are XY, they're XY. And in England, in the UK, they banned this. They said the drugs were unsafe and had unproven benefits. So if the UK, America does not want to think that Europe is beating them in the health war and in the progress in science. But the UK said the drugs were an unacceptable safety risk for children. Not enough evidence to show they were safe. And so they might re-review the ban in 2027 to look to, again, because science is always evolving. But why isn't America doing the same thing? Cynthia Nixon, who was, I think she was oh my God, Sex of the City actress. She is apparently the mother. Her son is now trans, or her daughter has become a trans man. And she was talking about how she is, her kids' friends are trans. And so what a doctor does, because one of you asked, what is going on in a child's mind when they are transgender? We're talking like an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old. Well, transgender used to be, the definition might be changing. But from what I understood, if a child was waking up every day, looking at their body, going, I'm in the wrong body. I shouldn't have this penis or vagina. I shouldn't have this look. I'm in the wrong body. Get me out of there. These people need a lot of support. They need a lot of help. That is frightening, and it's so challenging for a child to wake up every day going, I am in the wrong body. But now transgenderism is a little different. It's, do you want to be a girl? Do you want to be a boy? You have a choice. And I always say, if you have a child that goes, you know what? I want to be a girl instead. Your next question should be, why? What's wrong? What is going wrong? You being a boy, what is happening to you because you're a boy? And if they say, I'm getting beat up after school, I'm getting beat up in the boys' bathroom, and when I'm around the girls, I feel safer. Well, that you need to know that. But that doesn't necessarily mean they need to go through all this medical transitioning. So, identifying as who you want to be as something that's taken a whole different course right now. But what we do to kids medically needs to be readdressed. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell our listeners who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me join you to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now and find out how much your case is potentially worth. Call 800-710-5100.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. If you think you deserve compensation, call now to find out how much you qualify for. 800-710-5100.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Hot Shot Secret Stiction Eliminator.
Stiction, that sticky friction, undermines the performance of diesel engines. Third-party ASTM testing verifies that Stiction Eliminator removes 2 times as much stiction than any alternative on the retail shelf. Stiction Eliminator is formulated to be left in the engine oil. It works as you drive.
Available at truck stops, Tractor Supply, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and online at HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret. Powered by science.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians, only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built. 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. And big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So I'm going to take a little bit of a pivot here. One of my favorite shows of all time was Cheers. Cheers was, I believe, a spinoff from Taxi, and then it had its own spinoffs with Frasier. Or was it not necessarily a spinoff of Taxi, but the same writers? Anyway, Cheers was my absolute favorite of shows growing up. And, every now and then you hear of little things that happen, little tiffs between the actors. And I remember reading a few years ago where the actors were actually fighting with each other because some of the actors were there on the set ready to go. Like Lilith would be ready to go. Ted Danson would be ready to go. But then I think Norm and Frasier and Cliff would come in like drunk. Right? So they'd be waiting around for hours for the other, this is reportedly, for the other actors to come on. And I love always hearing the backstory, of like who would have been casted as Sam Malone. I think Fred Dwyer, the guy that played Hunter, was originally supposed to be Sam Malone in Cheers. So I love looking at that trivia. But apparently Frasier, Kelsey Grammer had admitted on a podcast, I think it was the Woody Harrelson podcast where everyone knows your name. Frasier had admitted that he and Ted Danson weren't close because Ted Danson had approached him about his drinking. Apparently he was drinking, and I believe there was reportedly some drug use. And Ted Danson, who played Sam Malone, went up to him kind of upset that he wasn't showing up on time and they were waiting around. And I mean, this eventually became one of the top shows in the 80s and early 90s. And so I was reading about that. And it does open up a lot of room for conversation. But, there's some trivia that I've known about that I just kind of want to share with you for those of you guys who are, Cheer fans. I remember Cheers did not do well season 1. I was too young when it did first launch, but a lot of shows didn't do well. I remember Game of Thrones. I did not like season 1 of Game of Thrones. Then all of a sudden it was like, whoa, Melrose Place. Season 1 was, and then all of a sudden I was like, whoa. So what's fascinating about that is if everybody gave up with a bad season 1, even in your life, you might never get to season 2, season 3, which is really where it's good. Sometimes season 1 with a relationship where it's, that's okay. It's, then season 2, season 3, it gets good. So, read up on some of these sort of success stories where Abraham Lincoln, I think, lost his first couple elections. I think he got fired even. And then he became one of the greatest presidents. Unfortunately, he died. But, the stories are fascinating. Another story I know about Cheers is Cliff Clavin, John Ratzenberger. Great guy. I've gotten to meet him and hang out with him. He's a fantastic, he's a genius. He had auditioned for the role of Norm. He auditioned. And when he was walking out, knowing he didn't get the part, he made his own role. He said, hey, do you guys have a know-it-all? Every bar has a know-it-all. And they also he showed like a bunch of keys. Also has like a whole bunch of keys. And every bar has this. And then they gave him a shot to go, well, what character would this look like? Hence, Cliff Clavin. Very cool. I told you I made my own job. There was no urgent cares that was hiring. And I went to an ER and I said, what if you pay me less? half of your ER doc, but you have me do the fast track and you have me do the urgent care patients. And I made my own job. So a lot of lessons you could learn from that. I think Norm had a wife in the episode. George Wendt, his real wife was the voice of, I forgot what his wife's name was, but I think George used his wife's name. The real Cheers, I'm going back to Boston. I love Boston, one of my favorite cities. I'm going back to Boston. There's 2 Cheers. One that was used in the filming, I think near Beacon Hill and near the Commons, where you have to go downstairs to go to the bar, and there's the sign. It's a big tourist hangout, but when you go inside, it doesn't look like Cheers. But the sign, and that's what was used in the filming. There's another bar in Boston that actually was built to look like Cheers. And so that's pretty cool. But if you do go to Boston and you go, I want to go to Cheers, you need to specify, is it the one that you see from the outside, or is it the one that was made to look like the inside? 2 different bars. Ted Danson, his character, Sam Malone, was supposed to be a football player. And when they were looking at Fred Dwyer, who later became Hunter, he was, I think, a previous football player, if I remember, linebacker. And once they hired Sam Malone, because he was kind of tall and lanky, they turned him into a baseball player. So that was really, really cool. I think one of the writers died in September 11th. One of the planes that crashed into the World Trade Center. I tell you, a lot of history, tragic as well as interesting. Ted Danson actually spent 2 weeks at bartending school in Burbank, California, to train to play Sam. I noticed that when I would watch that, because I tended bar and I worked behind a bar in medical school. You need to know your way around, and he was very natural with it. So that was interesting that he took a couple weeks to do bartending school so he could, learn how to flip the bottles and things like that. Norm was also not supposed to be a regular character. He was supposed to be a minor character who just kept saying beer, just kept ordering beer. And then later, he had the bar stool. He had the same, people walk in and they go, Norm. I think also they were going to have Cheers set in another city. And they said, no, Boston would probably work because we don't have a lot of shows set in Boston. And Boston and New England is all about the bars. And that's where people go after work and they hang out. And that's where they make friends. And so that was pretty cool. They were criticized for the laughing too loud, that the laugh track was too loud, and that Cheers should have lowered their laugh track. They never had a laugh track. Those laughs were real. It was a live studio audience. So I thought that was pretty cool. Rhea Perlman, who played Carla, I think she had a relative. I think her father and her sister were apparently on the show a lot. Her husband, Eddie LeBeck, apparently, and this comes from Mental Floss, he apparently hurt his own career because he was on, I guess, a radio show, and a caller asked him what it's like to be on it. And he said, it's brutal. I have to kiss Rhea Perlman. Now, I don't know why Jay Thomas said that, and then they ended up killing him off, which, by the way, was a fantastic scene. I don't know if you saw the funeral where Carla's crying and she's coming up. They say, can the wife please come up to the funeral? And all of a sudden, another lady's walking up too, and they're looking at each other like, who the hell are you? I tell you, fantastic. I think the writers were absolutely brilliant. I'm not going to go too much more into this. As you know, Ted Danson wore a hairpiece. We saw that on the finale. He had great hair, but it was a hairpiece. I guess Frasier was supposed to be John Lithgow. John Lithgow was supposed to be Frasier Crane. And Kelsey Grammer, not only did an amazing Frasier Crane, and Cheers went on to later be Frasier. Kirstie Alley was the only main character that never did come on Frasier, the spinoff. Kirstie Alley, as you know, took on the role of Rebecca after Shelley Long had left. From what we understand, there was a little bit of Shelley Long, and I think some of the other actors didn't get along with her. Woody was a coincidence. They said that Woody Harrelson ended up playing Woody Boyd by sheer coincidence. The character's name was written in the script long before. So they didn't name Woody after Woody Harrelson. There was just supposed to be Woody, and that was in the script. And then all of a sudden Woody Harrelson comes in, and yeah. Norm did not drink real beer. Apparently, the glass was called near beer. It was a weakened strain of ale mixed with a little bit of salt to keep the head on the glass at all times, so it looked like beer. But there still was alcohol in it, and apparently he drank a lot of that, from what we understand. Also, Cheers was great about designated driver. You know how now we talk about designated driver? Well, the idea of designated driver, they believe was even though it might have not come from Cheers, but it was promoted. Cheers is like, you're not going, you can't drive. And somebody would say, I'm driving him. Although if you do go to the Cheers, the real one, there's no parking. So I'm not sure where they were parking for that. Let me see what else. Let me see. Oh yeah, the cast and crew did get drunk for their send-off. At the send-off, they did get drunk. And so, I think it's cool. Again, one of my favorite shows. I just love hearing the backstory. I think it's really, really cool. Like Bruce Willis was supposed to be in Lord of the Rings. So pretty cool. 1-877 Doc Daliah. Don't go away.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
On the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. So one of our listeners, again, we're going to keep their name anonymous, says that what's happening right now in the country is scaring her. She is not an immigrant or an illegal immigrant, but she thinks that Trump is moving too fast, and she finds that what the new administration is doing is quote unquote scary. And I thought we should address this, why people get scared and what is so scary, or people are perceiving it as scary. The first thing I think of is Trump follows 4 years of, so my guess is all of a sudden now you see a president in the news all the time. You see a president doing something and not shuffling all the way back to Delaware every 2-3 days. So yes, there is a big pendulum swing or a very sharp contrast between the current Trump presidency and Biden. But as a doctor and as an American, I do want to listen to all sides, and I do want to see what is it that people are concerned about. A big thing people are bringing up is the deportation, the big, massive deportation. Well, Trump said he was going to do that from day one. He said if there are illegal immigrants and there are criminals, and there are criminals that have come across, not all illegal immigrants are criminals, but if you were here illegally, you broke the law and you need to leave. This wasn't sprung on 2 days ago. He has been saying this for a year. He was saying it in his previous presidency. In fact, his deportations were less than Biden's, fewer than Biden, because he had a secure border. Just because the border went the other way, which to me was very scary, to the parents who lost children, whose children were raped or abducted or trafficked or, very scary. But, he has to now clean up the mess that Biden made. And it is concerning. You don't want to have to see people deported and leave. It's not something that is a, shall we say, positive act. When you see somebody was deported, when you hear somebody was deported, that would be under the negative terms because it implies somebody came here and illegally. It implies that they're not doing what they're supposed to do and they're not following the laws and they can't stay in this country. Nobody cheers and is excited about that. But I see, somebody had tried to say, Daliah, this is kind of like, Nazi Germany where people have to hide and they have to, okay, Nazi Germany, and please be careful. Please, please, please be careful. Try to compare what's going on now with Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany, they found you and killed you. They round you up. Even if you volunteered when they said we need all Jews, raise your hand. They carted you off in a train and killed you. For the love of God, I will not put up with anybody trying to suggest that whatever is happening right now is the same as what Hitler did to 12 million people, including Jews, Catholics, LGBTQ, AI plus community members, gypsies. That's not going to be tolerated. But, the idea of, you're here, you weren't supposed to, you had a hearing, you didn't follow the process. There's a legal process. If you don't have your proof that you were supposed to be here legally, you leave. And it's something that is not an easy thing to suggest. It's not an easy thing to ask for. It's not an easy thing to carry out. But if I wanted to move to Germany, which is a beautiful country, by the way, I've been to Germany twice. It's exquisite. But if I snuck in, they'll deport me. Japan will deport me. Any of these countries will deport me if I don't. Israel, if you want to sneak into Israel, you're going to have to do what the other Israelis do: military duty, pay taxes. You have to, you have to assimilate, but you have to go through the legal process. If not, you get deported. And so America is doing what other countries are doing. It's just this follows a president that let things be so loose and porous and lax. Now, somebody could say, and I've heard this, but Dr. Daliah, they're legal immigrants. Because Biden opened up the border, they're legal immigrants. No, they're legal if they went through the process and they went through the hearing, they went through border and customs, have gone to their court hearing, have applied for work visas and paying taxes and working. And if they have, there's a lot of individuals. And like when my father emigrated here, he got invited. His family got invited. They got a visa. Then they had a time limit to learn the language, to study for the test, take the test, and become citizens. If not, they'd have to leave. And so I totally get, being a daughter of an immigrant, how amazing it is that America could take immigrants. But there's a process. And if somebody's not following that process, then they're an illegal immigrant. Or if they snuck across the border and they didn't go through the front door or go through the line. Because people are saying, but yeah, there was a website. And if you went the other way, yeah, but if you still had to go to a court date, you still had to follow certain rules. And so it is. I understand this is not good. Nobody is happy about this. Nobody is happy that we had millions of illegal immigrants. And I understand many of them are refugees, but we have refugee options available. If you are a refugee, America has a way to take in refugees. They even said after the Afghanistan war, because of the pullout and how disastrous that was, they're going to be taking refugees. They're going to be taking refugees from Ukraine. The refugee line in immigration is different than somebody sneaking over or hiring cartel members to bring them in. It was a mess. And I get it. most of the world would love to be in America. I get that. But if we aren't taking care of our own, this is what happens. America voted for Trump. They aren't happy trying to be a refuge for the whole world because they're not being taken care of. Their schools aren't passing their kids. Their hospitals are turning them away because there's no beds. Their groceries are expensive. They don't have formula for their babies. So America voted for Trump. So when people get scared, it might also be a change issue where people don't like change. Change is not easy. My life right now is going through some major changes. I have a family member that now has a debilitating disease and is going to need a lot of care. And that is now going to change, a lot of our finances. It's going to change a lot of our daily activities. But that's life. It's not easy, but it's life. And things aren't always going to be the same. Well, that's why we have elections. We don't want one president to be president for 20, 30 years. That's why we have elections. That's why we have people choice. And maybe what's scaring her is that her side didn't win. Maybe it's scaring her because she thought she was in the majority. And I've spoken to a lot of Democrats and liberals who were shocked, but they were like, I could see why though. Everybody concentrated on, this messaging and this and wokeness and, they didn't look at other things. It's because that took such a forefront. So it'll be interesting to see what the Democrats do to try to gain people back. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by right now. They'll tell you if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-910-7500. That's 800-910-7500. Call now to find out how much your case could be worth.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So Gus asked me to expand a little bit on what happened with this boy who died in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. So I think this was 2 days ago. I don't know if you guys heard. There was a boy in a medical facility. It's north of Detroit in the city of Troy. And he was at a Michigan medical facility getting hyperbaric oxygen treatment. The chamber explodes, kills him, injures his mom. I don't think any staff were injured, but just absolutely horrifying. And hyperbaric oxygen is 100% oxygen. I mean, we are infusing oxygen and bombarding your body with oxygen to help heal wounds, deal with decompression sickness. We use it, I think, post-radiation therapy. There's a lot of indications, burn care. There's a lot of things we could do with hyperbaric oxygen. It's a fantastic treatment until something like this happens. We don't have a lot of details. So Eyewitness News, ABC 7, which I think comes out of New York, reported on this through AP News that the boy was only 5 years old. This happened on Friday, injuring him and his mother. He dies. Mother is injured. This was at the Oxford Center in Troy, north of Detroit. It happened at about 8 a.m. The kid was from Royal Oak, Michigan. We don't know what his medical issue was that required the hyperbaric oxygen. Sadly, he was pronounced dead at the scene. According to Troy Police Lieutenant Ben Hancock, the mother of a child suffered some injuries to her arms as she was standing right next to the chamber as the explosion occurred. So tragic and mind-boggling. As of today, still, unfortunately, we don't know why it happened. We don't know and why the child was treated there. So delivering oxygen by having an enclosed space and subjecting somebody or a body part to this with higher than normal air pressure has been shown to have numerous medical benefits. Even helps with like air embolisms and things like that. Carbon monoxide poisoning. We spoke about hyperbaric oxygen where, when somebody has carbon monoxide poisoning, the first thing we have to do to, carbon monoxide looks like oxygen, where you have, rather than O2 for oxygen, you have a carbon atom and an oxygen atom. So it looks like oxygen to the body. So the body will suck up carbon monoxide, and now oxygen is trying to get in there. It can't. So you end up asphyxiating and dying. So with carbon monoxide poisoning, we have you get away from the closed air space that has carbon monoxide, or get away from the space heater that might be emitting it, or the car, or whatever, trying to get you to fresh air. But if you are hypoxic, you're starting to get brain damage. So sometimes we have to accelerate the oxygenation and try to push out that carbon monoxide from the receptor to get oxygen in there. And sometimes we use hyperbaric oxygen. I'm not saying that's what this boy needed, but that's one of the indications for it. So, because it's oxygen in a pressurized environment, it can be dangerous. This was an 5-year-old child, not sure how a spark could have happened. And so, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of answers. Somebody died. Right now, I guess the investigation is being turned over to the state. According to the Oxford Center, they said the safety and well-being of the children we serve is our highest priority. Nothing like this has happened in our more than 15 years of providing this type of therapy. We do not know why or how this happened, and will participate in all of the investigations that now need to take place. So they're cooperating. And, we just had a child in Philly die on a plane, a Medivac plane. Child went to, not St. Jude's, but just similar to St. Jude's, where they just had cancer care, and from what I understand, graduated in terms of their final treatment, was flying back through Springfield, Missouri to go to Mexico, where the child was from, with that child's mother on the plane, and then the crew, and that plane died. And so I'm sure a lot of parents are now getting a little nervous about bringing their child in to get medical treatment, and then that child dying from either a plane crash or a hyperbaric oxygen explosion. In medicine, we're supposed to do no harm. These are things that are freak accidents, just absolute, no rhyme or reason as to why something like that would happen. We might find out there was an issue with the plane in Philly. Once they look at that black box, they were able to recover, I think, 8 feet from the impact. I mean, it was down in the ground. They'll hopefully be able to salvage some information from that to figure out what could have happened in the final 60 seconds of the flight, which I don't believe was even in the air for 60 seconds before it crashed. But I know parents are worried. And, being in family medicine, you do a lot of pediatrics and you deal with a lot of parents. And it's interesting because it's a whole different beast when you're dealing with a patient who is the patient or you're dealing with somebody who is the parent. And these pediatricians, God bless them, they have a much tougher job because not only do you have to convince the patient to get a therapy that you think they need, but you have a second person or a whole family going, well, what the hell is going on here? You have that with family medicine as well. But there's a lot of eyes, wanting answers and wanting to know that this is the best course of action. And, that's why, like with vaccines, I've had a lot of parents that had questioned vaccines that I would recommend. And understandably so, they weren't bad parents. They're not crazy. It's just they're concerned about their child. They have to make a decision about something being injected into their healthy child. And it's my job to educate them on the pros and cons, of vaccines. And so, parents asking questions is commonplace and I think is necessary. I think if your child is undergoing a procedure, parents should ask the question, especially since the parents are the ones giving the consent. But I haven't heard of a hyperbaric oxygen chamber exploding. I don't think ever. It might have happened, but something like this should have never happened. And it's absolutely tragic. And so people always ask, when is the cure worse than the disease? Many people have to make a decision about cancer treatment. They're like, but I don't want to go bald and I don't want to be vomiting and I don't want to lose weight and I don't want to become thrombocytopenic and anemic. And but when you talk to patients who are in remission, they're like, it's flipping worth it. Do what you've got to do to fight this. And it's not an easy decision. Everything comes with risks. When I had to decide, my son was having multiple throat infections and needed his tonsils removed. And I'm a physician and I've seen tonsillectomies. I've performed tonsillectomies. It's a whole different ballgame when your son needs to now go under to have a procedure and there could be post-procedure complications like bleeding, infection, not easy. But I made the decision when he wasn't growing and he wasn't thriving and he was always sick and he was always in pain. And it's not an easy decision. I really feel for parents and patients having to make decisions. It's not easy. But a good doctor and a good medical team will inform you of the risks and will also do all they can in their power to ensure those risks aren't there. Nobody wanted this plane to crash. Nobody wanted this hyperbaric oxygen chamber to explode. But something happened. Something wasn't right. Something didn't go well. People always bring up the coffee at McDonald's, where that person sued McDonald's because they burned themselves with the coffee. And when you look at the case, that McDonald's had been warned multiple times that their coffee was too hot, that their hot water was too hot. The reason why that lawsuit went in favor of the patient and the customer is because there was evidence that McDonald's was told your water is too hot. You need to do something about it. Somebody could get hurt. And now there's a negligence issue. So when we look at these cases, we look at negligence, we look at somebody not doing their job, a faulty machine. Usually there's something behind these horrific accidents. It's just going to take time. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.